You've tried the morning routines, the cold showers, the gratitude journals, the 5 a.m. wake-ups, the green smoothies, the apps that remind you to breathe. They worked for 3 days, maybe 5, then they didn't. And somewhere in that quiet, private collapse, somewhere between the unread book and the alarm you stopped setting, you decided you were broken. You're not. The routines weren't wrong either. They were aimed at the wrong system, in the wrong order, at the wrong time of day. In the next 16 minutes, you'll see why your brain is shut down, the 4 systems that must come back online to lift it, and the precise daily sequence, small enough to do on the worst day, that teaches the nervous system the siege is over. By the end, the shame of knowing what to do and being unable to do it will finally make biological sense, and you'll have a routine you can start tomorrow. There is a reason the most widely recommended advice for depression, vigorous exercise, is often the absolute worst possible starting point. The biological system required to even desire to exercise is the exact system that is shut down. To aim a routine, there is a structural error, like ordering a city under siege to throw a parade. There is also an unresolved question as to why forcing a new routine feels fundamentally different on day 3 than it does on day 1. And understanding that shift reveals exactly which internal engine is running and exactly when it is running on fumes. Furthermore, there is a single, small action, executed at a precise time of day, that does more to unravel depression than anything else on the standard list. And almost no one names it correctly. That intervention is coming, and it is not what most people expect. To understand what is actually happening inside the body, one must look to the architecture of the ancient world. When a great fortified city, imagine the high, mud brick walls of Babylon, or a Roman outpost at the cold edge of the empire, or a medieval citadel braced for a long winter, faced a prolonged, unsurvivable threat, the strategic response was never to expand. It was to retract. The outer trade routes were abandoned. The iron gates were shuttered, barred, and reinforced. The lanterns in the outer quarters were extinguished. The citizens retreated inward into the innermost keep, rationing grain and water, conserving every spark of fire, every calorie, every drop of strength, until the environment outside became survivable again. The human nervous system operates on the exact same ancient wisdom. Depression is not a flaw in the design. It is a profound protective shutdown, executed by a biology far older than language. When the nervous system calculates, accurately or not, that the current environment is overwhelming, inescapable, or chronically unrewarding, it triggers what is known as a dorsal vagal collapse. It initiates a biological siege protocol. Energy conservation becomes the only directive. Motivation, pleasure, curiosity, and exploration are deliberately downregulated, just as external trade caravans are halted during a war. The lights inside go dim. The watchmen are stood down. The bones grow heavy in the bed. The exhaustion of trying everything and ending up back under the covers, staring at the ceiling by 2 p.m, is not a moral failure. It is the body executing an ancient survival strategy flawlessly. The tragedy is simply that the siege is happening in the modern world, where the threat is often invisible, a relentless job, a relationship that drained for years, a childhood spent in a home that never felt safe, a season of grief that no one ever properly acknowledged. And the cost is paid in lost years, strained relationships, and shattered self-trust. For the gates of the city to open again, the nervous system must be convinced, slowly and through repetition, that the siege is finally over. This requires bringing 4 specific biological systems back online, and they must be awakened in the correct order. Out of sequence, they fight each other. First, the circadian rhythm, the deep biological signaling of light and dark that tells the body what time of history it currently exists in. This is the foundation. Without it, nothing else holds. Second, dopamine prediction, the brain's internal reward forecaster, the mechanism that calculates whether an action is actually worth the energetic cost of performing it. When this system is offline, every task looks identical and identically pointless. Third, behavioral activation, the counterintuitive, almost offensive reality that action must precede motivation, not the other way around. Waiting to feel like it is waiting for the fire to warm the room before any wood has been laid in the hearth. Fourth, interoception. The sensory pathways that carry the physical signal of safety from the body back up to the brain. Without this signal returning, the mind cannot believe the city walls anymore. This framework explains exactly why the standard checklist of cheerful self-help advice so often makes things feel significantly worse, not better. Gratitude journals fail when interoception is completely offline. Writing positive words on a page does absolutely nothing if the body's internal messengers are currently deaf to the feeling of safety. The signals are blocked. Cold showers fail in isolation because throwing a bucket of ice water on a starving, besieged populace does not end the siege. It merely adds a momentary shock to an already depleted system, and the body simply learns to brace harder. And exercise fails because the dopamine required to lace up the shoes relies on the very biological supply lines that have been severed. The advice is not necessarily wrong. It is missequenced, given in the wrong order. Even good medicine becomes another small failure stacked onto the pile. If you have ever wondered why the same morning routine works miracles for one person and does absolutely nothing for you, the next part is the answer. To lift the shutdown, a daily routine must speak the native language of the nervous system. It must be anchored to these four systems, in the right sequence, rather than relying on motivation that no longer exists. It must be small. It must be the same every day. And it must look from the outside almost insultingly modest. Morning. Light exposure within the first hour of waking. This is the circadian reset, and it is the single most underrated intervention in human health. It mirrors the dawn watch of an ancient garrison. The moment a sentry climbs the wall, sees the sun rise across the plain, and signals that the night is over. When natural sunlight hits the eyes before any artificial screens are viewed, it signals a region deep in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This single action resets the cortisol pulse, anchors the sleep-wake cycle, and prepares the downstream dopamine cascades for the rest of the day. 5 to 10 minutes is enough. It does not have to be sunny. Cloud light is still many times brighter than indoor light. Step outside, face east, drink a glass of water. That is the entire instruction. It is the biological equivalent of raising the city's flag at dawn to signal that morning has broken and the watch has changed. Mid-morning, a tiny action completed. This targets behavioral activation. The action must be absurdly small. Wash a single dish. Move one book from the floor to the desk. Fold one shirt and put it away. The objective here is not to be productive. The objective is to give the brain undeniable, physical evidence that an action produced a tangible outcome. When a system is entirely shut down, reward prediction is broken. The brain has stopped believing that effort leads anywhere at all. Completing a microscopic task restarts the dopamine forecasting engine. It proves to the nervous system, in language it cannot argue with, that the immediate environment can still be interacted with. The size of the action is the point. Anything larger triggers the threat response. Anything larger is the parade order to a starving city. Midday, movement, mild, not virtuous. A walk around the block, stepping into the garden, pacing a corridor for 10 minutes, not a punishing, sweat-soaked optimization routine, not a workout that requires shoes you have not seen in months. The goal here is interoception. The body needs to send a gentle, rhythmic signal back to the brain stating that the limbs are free to move, that there is no predator giving chase, that the territory immediately surrounding the citadel is safe to traverse. This is the moment a single scout is sent out from the gates, not to fight, not to conquer, just to walk the perimeter and report back. The signal travels up the vagus nerve. The brain receives it. And slowly, over days and weeks, it begins to update its map of the world from hostile to neutral, and from neutral, eventually, towards safe. Afternoon. One moment of genuine connection. A real conversation, a real phone call, a shared physical presence with another human being. Not a text message, Not a like on a post, not a notification. Human beings are tribal mammals. The nervous system requires the oxytocin and ventral vagal regulation that only comes from real social reward. Eye contact, a voice-carrying tone, the small warmth of being met by another mind. It is the careful opening of the city gates to let a single trusted envoy inside, bearing news from a wider world that has not, in fact, forgotten the city exists. 5 minutes counts. A single message exchanged with a friend who matters counts. The smallest honest dose, repeated, is what rebuilds the circuit. Evening, dim light, predictable wind down. This is the circadian close, the bookend to the morning. It must be the exact same shape, at roughly the exact same time every single night. Lower the lights an hour before bed. Put the screens down, or at least dim them deeply. Drink something warm. Do the same 3 small things in the same small order. Predictability drastically lowers cognitive load and tells the threat detection system, at last, that it can stand down from the watchtower. The body must learn that night is no longer dangerous. The only way it learns is through repetition. This is the piece almost everyone leaves out, and it is the piece that makes everything else work. The mechanism of compound recovery. This routine only works when it is run as an unbroken chain, not as a buffet from which pieces are picked at random on the days they feel doable. Each element does more when the one before it has successfully fired. The light makes the small action possible. The small action makes the walk possible. The walk makes the connection possible. The connection makes the evening wind down meaningful, and the wind down protects the sleep that powers the next morning's light. Skip a link, and the chain does not hold its tension. Acknowledge this reality plainly. The first 2 weeks will feel like absolutely nothing is happening. On day 1, novelty carries the action. There is a faint, fragile lift. By day 3, the nervous system is actively testing the new data, waiting for the inevitable return of the threat it has learned to expect. The routine will feel profoundly heavy and useless. The voice inside that says this is pointless will be loud, articulate, and convincing. It is not telling the truth. It is the watchtower checking whether to trust the silence. The brain is meticulously rebuilding its prediction model from scratch, comparing every new data point against years of contradictory evidence. Days 14 through 28 are where the system finally begins to trust the new architecture. The biology shifts, sleep deepens. Food begins to taste like something. A song, half remembered, suddenly lands. The gates begin to open. A vital distinction must be stated clearly, without softening. This is psychoeducation, a mapping of the machinery of the mind. It is not medical advice. Severe depression, particularly when accompanied by a loss of the will to live or thoughts of self-harm, warrants immediate professional support. This routine is a structural complement to therapy and medical care, not a replacement for reaching out to a clinician, a trusted person, or a local crisis line when the dark feels absolute. If today is one of those days, that call is the first action of the routine. Nothing here is more important than that. The heavy resignation, the quiet suspicion that this state is somehow permanent, the certainty that nothing will work because nothing has worked, can be put down. The shame of knowing exactly what should be done and being unable to do it belongs to a misunderstanding of biology, not a verdict on character. Depression is the brain protecting the organism from something it once, accurately or not, decided was unsurvivable. The routine does not fight that protection. The routine, day by day, teaches the brain that the cost is no longer worth paying, that the siege can end, that the gates, slowly, can open. To understand exactly what put the brain into this state of protective shutdown in the first place, the specific events, patterns, or survival templates running beneath this particular shape of depression, that mechanism is detailed in the next video. Subscribe to keep mapping the underlying machinery of the mind. And for anyone in crisis right now, please contact a local crisis line, an emergency service, or a physician. The next breath matters more than any routine.